Last night was UFC 307, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree, and this is going to be my top 3 takeaways from UFC 307. I'm going to start with some honorable mentions, then I'm going to go from 3 to 1, 1 being my biggest takeaway from the card. And also, at the end of this video, we're going to have a bonus takeaway. That the reason I'm including it outside of the list is because I may make an individual video on it. I'm going to get your guys' feedback. But let's start off with my first honorable mention, and that is that unfortunately Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is done. He gets brutally chinned by Joaquin Buckley in the featured prelim in the 3rd round. And the reason I say Wonderboy is done is because he's been talking about for a while, I'm not going to retire for a while. And don't get me wrong, I don't think he looked horrible. I thought he won the 1st round. I thought he looked decent in the 2nd round. But he's getting chinned by Joaquin Buckley, okay? And that's a problem because Wonderboy historically, the problem is the grappling. And you could say the grappling set up the shot from Buckley, but Wonderboy was doing great stuff in the takedowns. When he did get taken down, he worked his way back to his feet. And then unfortunately, he ends up on all fours, getting killed with a right hand and then back shots dead. And now he's lost, 2 in a row? He's lost 4 out of his last 5. And, I mean, how many of those has he been finished in? He's been finished in 2 of them. He got finished by Joaquin Buckley, finished by Shavkat Rakhmonov, dominated by Bilal, dominated by Gilbert Burns. His only win's Kevin Holland. And I know Kevin Holland was on this card, and Joe Rogan was talking about a title run for Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's a gatekeeper of the top 30. I've been saying this for years. For some reason, he gets overhyped because he has Dana White privilege. But at this point, what does Wonderboy do? I don't think he's even super competitive against a lot of the guys in the top 15 of welterweight, and especially the top 10. We already know that, because a lot of these guys are wrestling heavy. So where does he go from here? I mean, maybe you can book him with some fun fights, but at this point, I don't even know what it would be. Maybe Michel Pereira. No, but Michel Pereira went up to 185. So I guess Wonderboy could maybe go up to 185, but he's going to be massively undersized for 185. And guys who, he's getting out grappled badly at 170. What do you think is going to happen to him at 185? He's going to get out grappled there. So unfortunately for Wonderboy, I think he's done. Luckily, he hasn't taken a whole lot of damage just yet. This Buckley KO was really the first bad damage he's had since really 2019 when he got KO'd by Anthony Pettis. But it's just sad for Wonderboy because the one fight, he's stuffing takedowns. When he gets taken down, he works his way back to his feet. He gets chinned by Joaquin Buckley. So unfortunately for him, I mean, I'm sure Colby Covington maybe is now salivating. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. How old is Wonderboy now? He's 41, going on 42. So sounds like the perfect opponent for Colby Covington to beg for and call out nonstop. So maybe he can look for that fight. I mean, that's a fight he could potentially win, but Colby's probably going to out-grapple him. But yeah, Wonderboy's done. Next honorable mention and last honorable mention. And the reason this is only an honorable mention is because this could genuinely be an entire video. And so I may do an entire video on that in the next couple weeks. We'll see how it all works out. But we have to fix reffing and judging. And I really want to focus on reffing here, because the reffing in the Cesar Almeida fight was disgusting, reprehensible, embarrassing, horrific. I can't think of enough pejoratives to describe that ref's behavior in the fight. Dave Suggestad. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's Dave Suggestad. That was the ref. And, I hadn't really seen him before, but he is the embodiment of what we've been seeing in reffing for years. And what that is I am going to shout the rules, but I'm not going to enforce the rules. There was 4 eye pokes and a low blow by Cesar Almeida. And this guy is rushing Potieria back when he did stop it. Then half the time, he said, nah, keep fighting. Basically, Potieria would get poked in the eye. He'd be like, oh, my eye. And Dave suggests that. He'd be like, keep fighting, bitch. I'm not stopping it for that. Hell no. It's just crazy that there can be this many fouls without a point deduction. He didn't even give Cesar Almeida a hard warning. The only thing he did was watch the fingers, watch the fingers, watch the fingers. And if you've been watching my channel with any regularity, this has been a common theme that I've been beating this dead horse. Worse than I've been beating the dead horse about Michael Chandler wasting his entire career on Conor McGregor, but we're not even going to get to that. He left his family in January, but that's besides the point. I'm tired of these refs just shouting the rules instead of actually enforcing them. It's your job to say, push, don't grab. Why are you telling them that? You're saying push, don't grab the fence. I think that was Mike Beltran. No, you take a point when they grab the fence. Okay, I'm sick and tired of this. Watch the eye pokes. I mean, Chris Weidman, he lost his record last night. He was fuming in the crowd. Cesar Almeida took his eye poke record. But Chris Weidman's throwing 1-2 with eye pokes. He's landing like 4 eye pokes in one round. Okay, Cesar Almeida now took that record. I don't even think it was 4 in one round for Chris Weidman. But I'm sick and tired of these refs screaming the rules and not enforcing them. If I was a fighter in the UFC right now, I'm at least getting 1 free eye poke right off the jump. I'm looking for 1 free low blow. I'm looking for 1 free fence grab. First, second round of every single fight. Why the hell not? There's no incentive not to do it. It's just, it might as well take advantage of it. And then you have the judging. And again, I'm going to make this a whole video at some point. The judging is horrific. It doesn't make any sense. Even if, you want to say some of these fights were close. Just for an example, you have Carla Esparza, Tisha Pennington. Carla Esparza's grappling doesn't count for anything, okay? Her grappling doesn't count for anything. I'm not going to break it down in detail. If you care about that, you can go watch my full card post-fight. But then you get to Yasmin Lucinda, Marina Rodriguez, and Lucinda somehow wins on grappling. There's no consistency. The scorecards are all over the place. What's another fight that, the Juliana Pena, Raquel Pennington fight? There was split decision after split decision after split decision. Hernandez Hubbard was a split decision. I think there was 4 split decisions on this card. The judging is horrible. It's been horrible. There seems like there's no real attempt to try to clean it up. And I'm really getting sick and tired of it. It's like when you watch a fight, you're like, oh, I think this guy won. And then he gets brutally robbed. Now, luckily, I don't think there was any true, real brutal robberies on this card. But again, it's just the embodiment of something that we've been dealing with and that's been frustrating for years. Let's move on to my actual list. Starting off with number 3. And that is that it's time to just give Jose Aldo fun fights. And I don't know what's going on here, and I don't feel like a lot of people have talked about this, but there's a reason that Jose Aldo comes back from his retirement and he gets Jonathan Martinez followed by Mario Batista. He was on 1 fight on his contract. Supposedly he re-signed, but I don't know if there was some bad blood there. Even though they re-signed him, I'm wondering if there was some type of Hunter Campbell or Dana White took something personal from Jose Aldo in those contract negotiations. Because it's very odd, Jonathan Martinez and Mario Batista, and say what you will about the fight. I know a lot of people are up in arms because I said, oh, Jose Aldo didn't win with his back against the fence, and forget about that. Jose Aldo lost the fight. Why are we even booking him against Jonathan Martinez or Jose Batista? Or Mario Batista, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. You should be booking him in fun fights. Fun fights where we can see him really perform. Book him against, Corey Sandhagen. Book him against, even Devison Figueiredo would be fun. Now, I know Figgy's in the title picture, so that really doesn't make sense. But, what are we going to try to work him up the ranks so he can earn a rematch with Merab Dvalishvili? Yeah, we'll see how that works out. Even if he beats Mario Batista, does anyone want to see him against Merab? Book him in fun fights. Let him beat up Pedro Munoz. Let him fight, Marlon Vera again. Beat him up again. Book him against Sean O'Malley. I think that's the fight to make right now. Sean O'Malley just got his back blown out by Merab. Jose Aldo lost to Merab before. Why aren't we booking him in fun fights? Matter of fact, let me look up the rankings. Let me see what other fights we could book. So Corey Sandhagen would be fun. Figgy would be fun. Sean O'Malley would be fun. Even like Song Yudong would be fun. I think he beat up Rob Font before. Why are we booking these fights where it's like, oh, these are like the toughest guys at the bottom half of the top 15? It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. Even the Petr Yan rematch would be amazing. Now, I know Petr Yan is kind of in title talks right now. He's right up there. He's going to be fighting Figgy in November, I think November 23rd in China. So I understand some of these matchups. I'm just talking about why are we not giving Jose Aldo big names, fun fights that make a lot of sense? Because Jose Aldo is not going to be champion ever again. Okay, let's just face the facts. And people are saying, Joe, you don't like Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo is quite literally probably my favorite fighter on the entire roster. Okay, he's one of the very few guys that I'm still emotionally attached to. I don't know why we're booking him against Mario Batista. I don't know why we booked him against Jonathan Martinez. The only thing I can think is that contract dispute. Hunter Campbell, Dana White took something personal out of that. And that's why they were booking him against the toughest guys with the least amount of name value. So hopefully, maybe they got that out of the way. He lost to Mario Batista. Now we can book him in a fun fight. Even I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Henry Cejudo. I know Henry Cejudo is a wrestler, but he's not a guy that really uses his wrestling and MMA all that well. Wouldn't mind seeing that matchup. That'd be a fun matchup. I really like to see Jose Aldo, Corey Sandhagen, or Jose Aldo, Sean O'Malley. I think the Sean O'Malley fight would be a lot of fun, but let's stop booking him against the top. What are we going to book him against? Kyler Phillips next? We're booking him against the toughest guys with the least amount of name value. Let's give him a fun fight. For all I care, book him at 155 against Conor McGregor if he ever returns, you know? That's never going to happen, but, you know, we have to give Jose Aldo fun fights from here on out. Jose's so fun to watch. Why not book him in fun matchups? I mean, you could even look at 45 for potential matchups. Let's look at 45 real quick. You could book him against Yair. I mean, Jose Aldo versus Yair Rodriguez would be incredible. Jose Aldo versus, I wouldn't mind seeing him even against Arnold Allen. You know, maybe that isn't the funnest matchup ever. There's some fun matchups in 45 or 35 for Jose Aldo, but instead, we're going to book him against basically the toughest guys outside the top 10. Makes no sense. The UFC seems like they're not thinking at all lately. Undeserved title shots and fights that kind of make no sense. But that's kind of the nature of the business now. It just seems like every matchup is somehow, the UFC has an axe to grind. Moving on to my number 2 takeaway, and that is that Kayla Harrison needs to save the women's bantamweight division. She won last night against Ketlen Vieira, and I understand a lot of people are saying, Joey, it wasn't that impressive. And I understand that. It wasn't like super impressive, but Ketlen Vieira is actually a decent fighter. She has no urgency, but she's a decent fighter. You look at the women's bantamweight division right now, it's dead. The UFC has done nothing to really build that division since Ronda Rousey left. Once Ronda Rousey left, there's really been no attempt to truly develop and build out this division. At one point, we could have had Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes, and Chris Cyborg all at 45. That never happened. It's like the UFC, I swear, and the reason women's MMA gets such a bad name is because the UFC just uses them to fill in holes on cards. That's all they're doing. They're having so many cards, they need all the women. They need all these women on the roster, but they don't care about actually building out the divisions and trying to sign all the best talent. It's just what they do. But Kayla Harrison is here to save the division. Juliana Pena beats Raquel Pennington. Juliana Pena is horrific. She's not good. She acts like she's promotable. She acts like she's going to be a huge star. She's not. She doesn't really have that great of finishing ability. She looks horrific when she's fighting. I mean, the skill level looks like looks like a drunk bar fight between someone who maybe has trained some cardio kickboxing in the past. Not even that. The striking looks horrific. She's corny. She's delusional. And then she gets on the mic instead of trying to promote the Kayla Harrison fight, which is going to be actually a big fight. I mean, not a big fight for women's MMA, okay? So no one jump down in the comments and say, Joe, what are you talking about, big fight? But it's going to be a big fight for women's bantamweight. When's the last time we've had a big women's bantamweight fight? I'm trying to think right now. I don't know. I guess the rematch between Nunes and Pena, I didn't think that was a big fight. I thought Nunes was going to win for sure. I thought the first matchup was a fluke. Anybody pick Pena in that rematch is a dimwit, for lack of a better word. So I think Kayla Harrison, she goes out there and beats Juliana Pena. I almost said Juliana Pennington. Juliana Pena, she saves the division. We can have like this figurehead of the women's bantamweight division that the UFC can really get behind. Hopefully she starts racking off some finishes, takes them down, beats them up, submissions, ground and pound. And she needs to save the women's bantamweight division. Because if we're just going to have Pena as the head of the bantamweight division, I pray that we don't get any main events with that. I pray we don't get any main events to that. So Kayla Harrison gets the win over Ketlen Vieira. I think this was the UFC's plan all along, to be quite honest. I said this prior to the fight. They were hoping that Pena would beat Pennington, and then they could promote Pena versus Harrison. Then if Harrison beats Pena, Nunes comes back for a huge fight. So at least that gives us like 2 years of interesting women's fights. You could do Harrison versus Pena. Harrison wins. Maybe she defends her belt once. Maybe she calls out Nunes and fights her immediately. But she defends her belt once, gets a big win. Then Nunes comes back. 2 years off, 3 years off. And we got Harrison defending Nunes' prior belt that she relinquished against her. It would help really save the division and build the division. And then we have 3 years. Hopefully the UFC starts signing and developing new talent for the women's bantamweight division. Moving on to number 1. My number 1 takeaway from UFC 307 is Alex Pereira is a great champion. And I know I get a lot, just speaking my feelings about Pereira and his resume. We're not even going to get into it too much in this video because people just cry and say, you hate Alex Pereira and this and that. Alex Pereira is a great champion. To be so active, he fought November of 2023. Then he fought April of 2024. Then he fought June of 2024. And now he fought in September of 2024 or October of 2024. So I don't know why I just mixed up the month. That's 4 times in less than a calendar year. He fought 4 times since last year, 3 title defenses. He is one of the most exciting fighters on the roster. And he is a fighter that we should all want as champion. I know I've lobbied criticisms like, why is the UFC booking him against number 8 Khalil Rountree? It makes no sense. It was free legacy, okay? Again, I don't want to get into that too much. Then people are going to start crying, but that's not the point of this. The point of this is Pereira is a guy who goes out there and is super active. And the reason I want to highlight this, even though we already know this isn't necessarily a big takeaway, is because this is who we should want as a champion. I know people are going to laugh when I make this comparison. I said recently, Bilal Muhammad is a guy we should want as a champion. Obviously, he's not as exciting as Alex Pereira on the feet and whatnot, but he's a guy who wants to fight the best, and he's super active. Pereira, I don't believe Pereira is ducking anyone. I believe that Pereira will fight anyone. I think the UFC is kind of protecting him, and I'm still kind of in the camp that the Ankalaev fight doesn't happen next. But Pereira is super active. He's making the light heavyweight division super interesting again, and I really, truly believe Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev is a massive fight. If Ankalaev goes out there and beats Alexander Rakic, 13-fight unbeaten streak, that is insane. And the fact that you have Pereira, who's on this run, who's running through everyone, brutally KOing Yuri Prohaska, brutally sleeping Jamal Hill, and now beating Khalil Rountree in a fight where he actually had to be competitive a little bit. If he fights Magomed Ankalaev, I'm telling you right now, it's like, this is going to be crazy. I know people are going to really say, Joey, you were insane. I'm being dead serious. I know people think I'm some huge Ankalaev fan. That's just not true. Okay, I like Ankalaev just as much as I like Alex Pereira, okay? This is the best fight to make. It's so compelling. It's so interesting. That's why I've been so adamant. This fight needs to happen. I would say this fight between Pereira and Ankalaev that needs to happen is close for me personally up there with Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway. It's probably not right there with it. That's how big that fight is. You have to realize Pereira's on this great winning streak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight win streak. And then you have Ankalaev on a 13-fight unbeaten streak. Imagine the hype going into that fight. Pereira's decent, even though he doesn't speak English, talking trash. Ankalaev has kind of shown more of his personality that people have been crapping on him. That's a ginormous fight. And I think that is the fight that will really cement Pereira's. His legacy's already written. He's a double champ. He's got these title defenses. But if he were to leave now or go to a different division or retire, people are going to say, oh, well, he never fought Ankalaev. That's just going to be the truth. That's just the God honest truth. That's the fight that needs to happen. I am terrified that it's not going to happen. There's talk of middleweight. There's talk of heavyweight. There's all this talk, except the guy who's clearly deserves a title shot in the division. Now, that all is out the window if he doesn't beat Alexander Rakic at UFC 308 in a couple weeks. But that's the fight that needs to happen. And ultimately, I'm hoping that it does happen because I think Pereira is one of these guys that's like, wait a second. Everyone's saying I'm ducking him. Everyone's saying I'm afraid of him. No, give me that guy. I think Pereira will ask for that guy. I'm hoping that he does. But right now, we'll have to see because there's going to be talk, oh, he's going to go to heavyweight. There's talk, oh, he might go to middleweight. Oh, there's talk, he's going to take some time off. Oh, what is he going to conveniently come back in March or April? That would be very, very interesting. Or is he going to come back really soon? Somehow is he going to come back in November, to save a card again? And they're going to be, oh, well, Ankalaev isn't ready. You can't take the fight. I don't know what's bound to happen, but I'll say this. Pereira is one of my favorite fighters on the roster to watch. He is unbelievably exciting. And I'm telling you, I'd be excited, a 10 out of 10, for an Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev UFC light heavyweight title fight. That will be the biggest. Let me think for a second before I get too hyperbolic. Pereira Ankalaev will be the biggest light heavyweight title fight since Jones DC2. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but off the top of my head right now, that is the biggest fight in the light heavyweight division since Jones DC2. That's how big that fight is for me personally. You guys will have to let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, last takeaway, and this is a bonus takeaway. I'm probably going to make a whole video on it. But Jamal Hill got absolutely embarrassed by Alex Pereira last night. You had Jamal Hill in the crowd yawning, after Pereira finishes Khalil Rountree. And he was like, hoping people were looking at him, and he had a pot belly bigger than mine. He's probably not coming back anytime soon. And he's been delusional ever since Pereira shut his lights off at UFC 300. And then you had Pereira show up at the press conference and say, oh, he's yawning. That's probably because he just woke up from when I KO'd him at UFC 300. So Jamal Hill, super delusional, embarrassing himself, one of the most unlikable fighters on the roster. And I'm truly thinking about making a video discussing Pereira and what he's done compared to Jamal Hill. You know, people think, Joe, you pick apart Pereira's resume just because I give my thoughts. Jamal Hill has an incredibly horrible resume for the light heavyweight, and the circumstances in which he acquired the light heavyweight title, you know, he needs to work his way back up to even get a title shot. That's what he needs to do. And instead he's in the crowd yawning. He's yawning. Meanwhile, yeah, you got slept at 300. So we can rehash that. We can rehash, you know, all the delusion of Jamal Hill. You guys have to let me know if you want that video. Because once I saw Pereira embarrassing him at the post-fight presser, I was like that meme of the guy behind the tree rubbing his hands together. Because Pereira responded perfectly. I actually said something similar in my post-fight before I even saw that. But yeah, Jamal Hill needs to earn himself back to a title fight. You know, maybe a rematch with his brother at UFC Fight Night Thanksgiving. We could see that. But he's going to at least need like 2 wins, I think. You know, I think 2 more wins in the top 10 before he even starts thinking about a title fight. Meanwhile, he's yawning in the crowd and probably crying afterwards. The comments were mean to me. How are the comments so mean to me? And Herb Dean, I would have won. I would have won the title against Pereira at 300 if it wasn't for Herb Dean and those meddling kids. That's probably what Jamal Hill's thinking about today. So let me know if you want that video. Let me know what are your takeaways from UFC 307. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.